You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Well, actually, that's Nick. And yeah. Oh, this is also Nick, a few seconds before. And here he is at the start of the race. And here he is a bit later. A few other people you need to meet. This is Frank with a long flowing beard. This is my teammate Jared, he's on the front. Here's some more of my teammates, Alfie and Dermot, in the pink. Here's Jared, he's on the front again. This is some, 12-year-old. I'm pretty sure this one's 16 at least. Yeah, this one might have a driver's license. Jesus, this race is full of plumbing kids. I mean, the guy on the right can't even be shaving yet. Oh, and then there's me. I'm the guy in the back. Yeah, I'm not doing much work. So we'll get to the crash a bit later on, but for now, the Super Series is back. I'm racing with a new team this year, with Mood Racing, and that's us there in the pink jerseys. Now, the plan for this race was for Jared and a few others to try to get in brakes, and for me to sit in the back and to do as little work as possible. So yes, once again, I am acting as the lazy sprinter, and don't I love it. So this is the usual Victoria Park Criterium course, but we're doing it in reverse, and the bottom corner here is a bit of a closing corner, so it tightens on the way out. People were really nervous. You actually have a lot more room than you think, because there's a long run out on the outside. You can ride over that ripple strip with no issues, but a lot of the time people were squeezing the brakes on the inside of the corner when you really didn't need to. And what that meant was, as you'll see a bit later in the race, it was much better to be on the front, or at least in the first sort of 5 riders, because you could confidently take the corner. And there was something about this course being ridden in reverse that really put the heebie-jeebies at people. People were coming into this little chicane here really not knowing how to ride in a straight line. As you can see, I think it was maybe Dermot that got pushed back off into the grass over there on the right. And here we are a lap later, and you can see people just swerving all over the road. No one's really got any consistent line through the corner. So just here, keep an eye on the Norwood Blue rider in sort of the centre of the screen, just there. He's decided he's taking a different line towards the outside of the course, and just about low sides it and most of the bunch. Anyway, the race ebbs and flows. There's not a lot really happening. Lots of break attempts. Adam here sees me floating right round the back, and just about in one go pulls me almost all the way through to the front, coming up this back straight. Adam's an absolute machine. He's about 7.5 feet tall and probably has an FTP of somewhere around 490, I don't know. But a couple of times during this race he just sort of grabbed me from the back and moved me up where it's a bit smoother near the front. He said the legs weren't there today, but if this is what he's doing when he's tired, I'm looking forward to racing with him for the rest of the season. Anyway, having gotten near the front, I decided to take this bottom corner sort of on my own line, jump a bit further forward, and because I'm quite confident with the tyres, I rail it and I don't slow down anywhere near as... I'm 5 k's an hour quicker already than when we're going through the corner most times. And fortunately, that gets me right to the back of this Norwood Blue rider, who starts towing me all the way up to the brake. Now, the goal for me today was not to try to get into any brakes, but if I did manage to get into one, and I can see here I'm just a few metres from the back of the group going up the road that looks pretty strong with a bit of a gap behind me, and if I do manage to get into a brake, to only pull if it looks like it might get to the end. So get to the back of this group, and they're absolutely hammering, and we're beginning to make a gap. At this point, I'm not planning on doing any work in this group, but by the time it does get to my turn on the front, we do have a decent gap. We've got a bunch of teams represented, and a big gap to the group behind, so I decide that it's worth pulling through and doing a turn. And we managed to stay out there for a bit. As I said, we've got quite a few of the teams represented. There's Villawood, Black Chrome with Nick Clark behind me. And so while I'm not going crazy, I'm still going to roll through and pull some decent turns at sort of 380, 400 watts. But the group's perhaps a tiny bit too big, and you can see there's 4 or 5 guys sitting on not pulling turns. And so that, inevitably, you can see what's going to happen. I pull through for another turn, and I'm giving it some beans, but I think at this point the goose is well and truly cooked. There's too many people not working, and the group's catching us up from behind. Sure enough, we're caught, and almost immediately comes a brilliant counter from Holdfast. And Will Mathwin, who's been in the break with me, he goes again, chased by another Butterfields rider. I have a think about going after it, but then I pull the pin. I don't have enough in the legs to chase another break, having just been on one. I don't want the break to go, so I try to get the speed up a little bit, and then as you can see people start coming past me, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to drop back into the bunch and try to recover for the last 5 laps. Now this race was supposed to be a 40-minute race. Unfortunately, due to some crashes that had happened earlier in the day which delayed proceedings, they'd shortened it to a 35-minute race. But I figured at this point I had enough time to recover for the finish so long as it all stayed together. Now, so we're a lap later, and something really funny happens. Keep an eye on this guy just to the left of me, 1133 with the blue shoes. This is the same guy who just about crashed at sort of lap 6 or so, deciding to go for a weird line. So he's on my outside, that's fine. I'm moving up on the inside, and then all of a sudden he just kind of rides into me. I don't know where that came from. It looked deliberate to me. There wasn't anyone on his outside. And yeah, he just decided he was going to ride into me. So I obviously had a bit of a problem with this corner, I think. I just yelled at him to, do better. But it was a bit sketchy, particularly as we're coming into the last couple of laps in the race. Alright, so we're in 2 laps to go now. And I'm sitting pretty close to the back. But in this course, I find you can always move up pretty easily. So I'm putting in a bit of an effort here. Jared's hopped onto my wheel. I may be burning a match where I shouldn't have, but the race was slowing up. I was on the protected side, and for not that much of an effort, you can see I've moved up about halfway up the whole pack now. I've pulled the parachute at that point, but then just sort of kept rolling forward, and so with only about 200 to 300 watts, I've managed to make it from the back of the pack almost all the way up to the front. And then coming around this corner, I see a line coming through, and I can see a group of riders on the right who seem to be making some progress. And at that point, Jared comes through and hits the front. Now, the race situation at the moment, there's 2 guys up the road. There's been a fairly disorganised chase, and Jared decides at this point that he's going to do everything he can to try to bring him back. None of the other teams have really committed a rider to do this, and so it's just on us. Everything Bikes in the green just ahead of us, and then Alex Kinane sitting behind me in the rear camera, and Jared absolutely sends it down the start-finish straight, and we're into the last lap. Jared pulls off sort of in this hairpin, and Everything Bikes doesn't want to pull through, and so I decided to take the corner as best I can, and because there's no one in front of me, there's no one pushing me off my line, I can take it nice and smoothly, and I take it around at about 48-50 k's an hour. And all of a sudden I've got a gap, and this is a problem because it's okay to go to the end. I'm not a rider that's going to be able to hold off the pack for that distance. But I don't want to slow down too much, so when these trains come past. So I sort of sit there at 300 watts for a bit longer than I should have, and then when the trains do come past, I kick it up and try to get on the back of them. But unfortunately, I think I'd been on the front for just a bit too long. I'd spent a little bit too much energy, and so coming into this corner, when the trains really did light it up, I didn't have enough. I did have a bit of energy left, so I was able to fight to keep this wheel. But I've spent a bit of energy now, and so now I'm kind of chasing for the minor places. Give it a good sprint. Unfortunately, then Nick manages to clip my back wheel, which actually knocks me onto the grass and stops me. And I have to get back up to speed again, and I was so close to getting Alex on the line I think I came 6th in the end. There were still 2 guys up the road, Will Mathwin and a guy from Holdfast. But let's have a bit of a closer look at what happened at the end there. Alright, so here's Nick Clark, just circled in red. And this is on the last lap, just before the last corner. He's sitting pretty nicely on Frank's wheel. He's got a good lead out from, Norwood Red and Norwood Blue. He's racing for Black Chrome, so not really for either of them. And coming around the last corner, he sort of drifts off to the outside. Now, he's got a teammate with him, so there he is again. He's in a pretty good position, and we've got about 300 metres left to go. At this point, the camera loses him a bit, but if you switch around to the front camera, you can see me sort of moving over to the left and really heading for that apex of the corner. Jumping back to the rear camera though, you can see as I'm passing his teammate, who seems to move over to the left a bit, and unfortunately Nick just gets his wheel just caught in behind mine, and unfortunately that's all she wrote. So I don't think there was any fault in it. I think it was just a racing incident, and Nick was out again last weekend, mixing it up with the best. So anyway, here it is one more time. I managed to walk away with 6th position, so got a few points on the day. First person over 35, I think, today. So at least I got to make a trip up to the podium. But yeah, that was round 1 of the Super Series. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.